Hi everyone. So we're here with the first interview with Simon Hamp. He's going to give us a talk through about all the different types of freelancing he's done in the past. Give us a bit of information about his experience, like what kind of things he might advise you to do and stuff like that. He runs Laradevs, which is a great directory for Laravel developers to try and get some new freelancing work and things like that. So I'll let you take it away, Simon. Can you just tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, sure. So thanks, Ash. It's nice to be here with you. As you've said, I'm Simon. I am freelance now, full stack software engineer, I would say. I focus on web applications. I use Laravel mostly on the back end. I wasn't always freelance, so my most recent stint of freelancing has been for the last couple of years, or coming up to 2 years. Before that, I was in a role. I ended up as the head of software at a company called LV, and I've had various roles. But, at an earlier point in my career, I was sort of freelance. I started my own web dev agency. It ended up being a few of us. I had some folks working with me, which was really fun for a few years. So I've done a little bit of like freelancing before, employed work in the middle, and then now I'm freelancing again. So
Yeah.
a little bit of a weird upsy downsy journey across development. I am from Birmingham in the UK. I would call my spiritual home London, though. It's kind of where I enjoyed being before I moved to where I am now, which is Gran Canaria. So I'm here with my wife and our canary dog, Bowie.
That's really cool. That actually. How's it? How do you find it living over there, not being in England anymore?
I tell you, the weather's good. By comparison, I mean, it's October now, and I know in the UK it's likely to be getting colder and even wetter. Here it's still in 20 degrees and relatively dry. So for any non-centigrade people, what's that? It's like 70 something Fahrenheit.
Yeah, I'm always lost when it comes to Fahrenheit and Celsius. Yeah.
I said centigrade. Like, how old am I? Yeah. It's 70 something. So it's nice
it's
in
nice.
Gran Canaria.
Much better than it is. It's raining here right now, so it's not great.
Sorry.
So I just wondered anyway if you could tell our listeners and stuff. How did you actually get into freelancing? Like, is there anything that drove you into doing it? Is there any reasons that started you doing it?
So I like for this time round, I'll talk about it because I think it's the most relevant.
Yeah.
I was in my role at LV, and the company was going through a bit of downsizing, and I took that opportunity. So I took voluntary redundancy, because I'd been there for coming up to 6 years. I had a little bit of a payout, just as a goodbye package from the company. And I used that as like an opportunity. It was working very hard. It was a startup. It was a hardware startup as well, which is kind of very difficult. And so it was an intense nearly 6 years. So I wanted to have a break before I did anything else. So I knew straight away. And this was at the end of 2022, and the market's already started going through a weird sort of downturn phase. There's been layoffs in the US and in the UK. A lot of tech startups are just getting rid of people in droves. So it's like shaky time. It's coming up to like the Christmas season, which is notoriously difficult for hiring anyway. And I just thought, I'll just have a couple of months off. I've got, funds to see me through that time, and then I'll start hiring, I'll start interviewing in the new year. And hopefully the market will pick up. It's like January, February, all businesses are like talking about budgets for the year, and they're thinking about hiring and all of their projects. And it kind of just didn't come off. I did a few interviews before then just to like get my feet wet again with interviewing. and then I went full tilt into interviewing in the start of 2023, and I had loads of interviews, which was great. You know, I was getting a lot of interest, but it took me the better part of maybe 4 or 5 months to get to the point of having a final stage interview. You know, the kind of things are looking good. This is basically, you've got it, it's in the bag, you're going to get an offer. And I actually only got 2 of those interviews, and only one of them ended up making me an offer, which is just the most unusual set of circumstances I've been in for the number of interviews that I actually did. So I worked it out, and I had done something like 50 odd interviews up to that point. So I mean, that's not loads. I've seen people do a lot more, but for me that was a lot. You know, it's a heavy time investment. I was basically working full time doing interviewing and applications and stuff, and then to end up with just, you know, that return rate of like 3-4% to get to a final stage is just like, what? And the company that made the offer, sorry, this is a lot of context, but
no, keep going.
The company that made me an offer is one of the biggest employers in the UK, private company, and they made me a great offer. Honestly, if I was in the UK at the time, I probably would have said yes, and it was in London, so I would have been living in London, so it would have been a no-brainer to just say yes, take that job, and move into that. Slightly different tech, slightly different role, but fine. Like, I need a job, let's go and do that job. It'll look great on my resume, blah blah blah. All the boxes ticked. The only problem, I'm not in the UK, and we're coming out of COVID, and their policy towards remote work is not like, well, we have to. We actually want people to come into the office. You know, can you come in a couple of days a week? And I'm like, well, no, because I live over here. And they're like, oh, okay. I said, I'm happy to relocate. You know, let's just talk about what that would look like. Unfortunately, they were unwilling to budge on anything related to relocation. So they kind of gave me an answer to their own question, which was, I can't do this because you're not giving me a sufficient, you know, reason to do it. Which was sad, because I was looking forward to, you know, I'd got on well with the hiring manager, and the process went really smoothly, and I'd met a lot of the team, and it could have been a very interesting role. But because that happened, and then I've kind of been through this really intense period of interviewing and kind of run out of juice in the tank for that, I decided, you know what, I'm just not gonna, this just isn't worth it at the moment. I'm investing so much time and energy into this, and obviously I'm not getting anything back from it because I'm not earning any money doing this. My funds are running dry. I can't guarantee that I'm going to get a job. You know, people are going to want me to come into the office. I'm going to have to like move country again just to work. Screw that. I'm going to start freelancing because I know that I can pick up projects, and, you know, I know I've got the skills to do what's necessary here. And because of some of the prior experience I'd had kind of working through like building a business and, you know, getting clients and doing that kind of thing, I felt like I was well set up to just start freelancing again. So yeah, that's how I got into freelancing this time around.
So it almost sounds like it was a case of the right job, but just wrong place, wrong time, and it almost just forced your hand a little bit.
Definitely.
It's quite interesting you've mentioned about the fact that it was like redundancies and stuff like that that's kind of pushed you into it, or kind of guided you into it, maybe not pushed. Because I think quite a lot of people, they tend to take a bit of a gradual step into trying to do freelancing, don't they? Like a bit part-time work here and there, and then do it. But you just went all out.
Yeah, no, I was pushed up to the edge of the cliff and forced to jump over. Yeah.
If you could have gone back, say like if you had foresight to know that the redundancy was coming, would you have spent a bit of time taking on some freelancing work, do you think, in part-time and weekends to kind of ease it a little bit, or would you still have gone down the same road that you did?
That's a really good question. It's really tricky to say, because like at the time, the role that I was in was very intense, so it's very difficult to do work outside of that role. I did try it in the past, just to I like to keep my feet wet again with like different projects, and people would come to me and say, could you help us out with this, and I would take it on as like it's a very little side project, and I can do it here and there, a couple of hours here and there, and maybe weekends or evenings. But I just, as the role, my full-time job role progressed, it just became so intense that I just didn't have the energy to do that whilst I was there. So I couldn't, coming home in an evening, and I'd just be like, my brain is just fried. Not, I would say it got close to being burnout at times. Managed to keep that at bay, but I definitely couldn't have built up other work, and the period of time that I went from choosing to go take redundancy and actually being out of work was relatively short. So I definitely wouldn't have had enough time to kind of build up client work sufficiently to say, okay, now I'm ready to go full-time freelance. It was literally just like thrown in the deep end.
I do feel your pain a little bit there. We're saying about the getting close to burnout and stuff if you're taking on work at like the evenings and stuff, because I know that I definitely got close to the same sorts of things. Like you almost get this little sense of, for me, like a bit sense of like greed, like, I can make some extra money at the weekends and evenings here, I'm going to do it. And you take on the work, and then you've actually got to do the work, and you get home from a day of work, and you're like, can't really be bothered. And you kind of start regretting it. But
it's very, very tough. I would say if my role wasn't so intense, I probably would have done it. But again, then looking back, my view at the time wasn't like I want to be a freelancer. I didn't set that as the goal. So it was just circumstances for me, which. It's not necessarily good or bad, it's not right or wrong, but I kind of feel like I've had to play the cards that I've been dealt rather than making a plan and like aiming towards this thing. I'm happy being a freelancer. It suits me in many ways, but I would say I probably wouldn't have planned to do it this way if my goal was to come out of that job and go and get another job. Just being quite straightforward about it. I want to buy a house. It's a lot harder to buy a house as a freelancer than it is when you've got full-time employment. So I definitely feel you on that one as well.
So I wondered, could you kind of tell us what's your average work week like what, maybe even day to day, if you want to go into specifics or anything?
It's actually quite varied. So as a freelancer, I find I wear many hats. Sometimes, even if I try and plan the week out, I don't know which hats I'm actually going to end up wearing. So I do have to just take what comes. Sometimes it's like opportunities, right? It might be a client says they've got another project, or a potential client what is showing some interest, or I see something on social media and I reach out to somebody, I'm sort of being proactive about the things that I'm showing interest in, and then setting up a call or whatever. And it's just like this, I could never have planned for that. I couldn't have gone on Sunday and planned out my week and worked out what I'm going to do on Wednesday, for example, because the stuff only came up the night before or on the day. So it's very tricky for me to plan things out, and I'm not that type of personality either. I do like to just kind of tackle things as they come up. But I know I've got a good sort of schedule. So one of my main clients I work for pretty much full time, and that takes up most of my time. So I know what I'm doing. Obviously the work is varied within that, but I know generally I'm just doing this stuff those days, and then the rest of it is okay, I've got my side projects, which we talked a little bit about, Laradevs and things. So those, any other, smaller client projects, and then the admin stuff. I'm a freelancer. I am a business, so
Yeah.
I need to sort out finances and expenses and all of that kind of thing, and just make sure I'm managing this thing so that it actually, is legal and compliant with the laws of the land. So yeah, all of that, which honestly is it's more than a full-time job. So it's a lot.
I definitely feel you on that one. Like, it's when you're a full-time employee, like, you rock up to work, it's 9 to 5, you write some code, maybe jump on a call or a meeting, something like that. And it's relatively straightforward and the same every week. Whereas the freelancing, it's all over the place, and you've got code, you've got meetings to join, you've got client stuff to do, you've got all your accounting stuff, and it's so hard to make sure that you're doing everything and, like, say, keep it above board so you don't get a slap on the wrist by the government or anything for doing anything dodgy. You need to make sure everything's right.
It's as I said before, it's a lot of hats, and you just don't know which one you're going to be wearing tomorrow.
No. It gets a bit more predictable over time and a bit easier, but it's still, I suppose that's kind of a good thing, actually, the fact it's always varied. It keeps things a bit, like, less boring, tedious.
Yeah, I don't mind it. As I say, I'm kind of that personality type, which just like, oh yeah, this thing now, okay.
Yeah.
And I've been used to context switching a lot for the last few years, just because of the nature of the role that I was in. But yeah, if you're the type of dev that just like, I just want to wake up in the morning, open up the computer, and write some code, maybe freelancing isn't right for you. Maybe you know that already, but you have to be prepared, I think.
I'd agree.
100%.
Yeah. So I'm guessing then that over the different times that you've done freelancing stuff, you've worked on loads of cool projects. So I'm wondering, is there any project, or maybe a couple of projects, that you think are like the coolest ones that you'd like want to show off, that you're allowed to tell us about, at least, anyway?
Yeah. Do you want projects that I've only worked on as a freelancer?
I'll leave it up to you. You can decide.
Okay. Well, I'll give you 3, because I've got one as an employee, one as a freelancer, and kind of the other one's a freelancer as well, but it's slightly separate. So as an employee, I think the coolest job that I've had was at LV. So and the best project that I worked on there, we were making a breast pump, so for feeding mothers, and that was really fun. I can't say too much about it, but we were like innovating in the space, like breast pumps have been up to now, these kind of plug them into the wall, very noisy, very big, really annoying. And we turned that into something like people wear almost as a fashion accessory, which is very cool. And it was just so much fun, especially in the early days of that company when the team was really small, and I was working very closely with some very smart people who I call friends now. And we just did some really amazing work together, and I really enjoyed it. So that was fun. So working in hardware is fun, even though it's hard. That's probably my best project overall, but obviously not as a freelancer. As a freelancer, I would say right now, the client that I'm working for is probably the most exciting one I've been involved with. It's a SaaS startup. It's kind of one of those ones that I've dreamed of being involved with for a very long time, and now I finally got one. And it's a B2B. The company's called Real Flow, Real REE, and it's a video platform, and it's just cool working on that kind of technology, and sort of thinking about video, which I've never had anything to do with before. And the team's very small. It's fun because I know the founders, and they know some great people. They've been very successful in business before. They know some really good people. So again, I'm working with a small team, smart people, and it's just fun. So I'm enjoying that a lot. And the product is cool, as I say. I think there's a lot of opportunity for that product, which is fun. And then the other thing that I wanted to talk about is more. It's technically freelance because I do it, at being a freelancer right now, but it's open source work. So there's this project that I started back in 2023 whilst I was doing job hunting. It's now called Native PHP, and it's a way to build desktop applications with PHP, which has been tried before, but never quite like this. And it's something I've wanted to do for years and years, and I just think that's really fun. So it's a side project, but yeah, it's a cool project as well.
No, that is definitely a cool project, and even if you are saying it's still open source, and it might not directly bring you money, although it might be donations, anything on GitHub.
Yeah, it does. I just recently crossed $1,000 a month, which is really nice.
That's really cool. Well, congrats on that. That's a cool milestone to it. But I guess even if you weren't getting paid from it, it's like, I guess that acts as like such a good portfolio item to attract more work and stuff. It's kind of crazy that you've hit that milestone, so well done for that.
I mean, I haven't, as far as I'm aware, nobody said to me that they've come to me because they've seen Native PHP. But I'm in contact with a lot more people because of it. And as you say, it's a good piece around, how managing a community, working with other developers, dealing with pull requests in public and that kind of thing. It has a lot of things that you can plug into, if you're interviewing with a client, stuff that you can say about what you do and show them. I think it's so important to be able to show clients what you do and not just talk about it. So create things that you can show people.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. Like, I think quite a lot of freelancers, they kind of think that they'll build stuff and then they'll get hired, but if you don't tell anyone the fact you've built it, how's anyone going to know? So, like, by you making those, looking after the issues and the pull requests and stuff, if you're getting hired by an in-house dev team or something, they can come in and actually see how you deal with it. You can also see if you're a bit of a, I don't want to swear, but if you're a bit of a bad person with the way you deal with people, that they can just tell if you're the kind of person who can gel with the team and stuff, can't they? And I think it shows off your personality quite a lot by the way that you respond to people, especially when they're not being particularly nice to when they're talking to you. So I'm guessing though that if you've worked on some cool projects, you've probably had some experiences with freelancing that haven't been so great, or anything that might not have worked so well, and you don't have to tell us if you don't want, though.
No, I'm happy to. There's always issues with clients. There's some clients, they don't really understand what it is that we do. The people that you might be working with on the other side of the fence are not technically minded, or they don't have an appreciation of the level of effort that's required for certain things that we're trying to achieve. And they maybe don't value it enough because of that, and so you have this difference in expectations, and that is where things tend to lead towards problems. So I've had some of those. It's usually been where a client has tried to push for, say, a fixed price on something, without specifying in great detail all of the things that need to be involved, and pushing for that to be rushed through, and it's like, okay, let's just agree on this and then move forward and get it done. And then it ends up being like a pain, and there's all sorts of problems and stuff. I've recently had a case of that, which is frustrating because it's very difficult to deal with, and that emotionally that can interrupt other work that you're doing. It can just interrupt your whole flow, which is something to avoid if you possibly can. And just I think where people are kind of putting you under pressure, I don't like pressure situations very much. No. I don't deal well with them, and I think part of that is my rationalization that actually nothing's that important. maybe I'm completely wrong with that, but it's like I can always kind of find a path through the noise to like, okay, this is the thing that you want to try and do, and this is why, and for those reasons, like, here's what we're going to do, and this is the time frame we're going to do it in.
Yeah.
And we come to a, you're sort of reasonable about it with people. If they're reasonable, you can come to an agreement. But sometimes people just aren't reasonable, and their expectations are set way too high or differently to yours, and then it's just, it becomes tricky. So yes, not too many of those, thankfully, but and it does take a little bit of time to get kind of suss out, like, what's a client going to be like, what the people that I'm interacting with on their side going to be like. But when you build up that sort of concept in your ability to do that very quickly and kind of read people, when that becomes a bit more tuned, then that happens very quickly, and you can kind of determine, is this a company or person that I want to be working with or not. And I think the next thing on from that is to basically just don't be afraid to say no. Don't feel ever like you're in a position where I've got to take this work, because I think from my experience, and maybe this is unusual, I don't know, but I've never wanted for work in that way. Like, it's not, I've said no and then nothing's come afterwards. Obviously I put the effort in to go, like, I'm still available for work, and anybody got anything? You have to get out there and tell people that that's what you're looking for. So you can't just sit back, but you shouldn't say yes just because you don't think there's going to be anything else next, because it could be completely wrong. You end up in a really bad situation, and then it just becomes really difficult, and you lose the joy in what you're doing day to day, and then you go, oh, sack it, I'm going to go and get a full-time job, I don't want to be a freelancer anymore, screw this, blah blah blah. And that's maybe not what's right for you, but it's just bad at this moment in time because of saying yes when you should have said no.
I completely agree with you on that. There's been I don't know about you, but there's been times in the past where I've had emails from clients, and there've been certain clients that have made my stomach sink, and every single time an email lands, I'm like, oh god, it's them again, what do they want? But it's like you say, you kind of refine the skill to almost spot who's going to be a bit of a pain and who's not. Don't you? Like you kind of start picking up on the red flags. And one of them that I found, and this is no dig at the slightest any companies that have got small budgets, because everyone starts off with a small budget when they're first starting out, but I tend to find that the smaller the budget, the pickier they are. I'm guessing it's because they're first starting out and they want to make sure they're using the money as best as possible. But if they're picky before you've even started a project, what are they going to be like when you're halfway through it? And they're always the ones that are giving me the biggest loads of I won't say hassle, because that's not fair on them, but they want the most changes, they want the most for the littlest amount, sort of thing. And I tend to find that as the budget gets bigger, they get a little bit easier to work with. As to why that is, I haven't got a clue, but it's just from my experience, that's what seems to happen for me. I don't know if you've experienced similar things.
Definitely. I think that's kind of universal, and I think it goes beyond software, web development as well. It's true in other industries too. I think sort of fundamentally where you get to is that a client who appreciates what's involved, understands the value of the work, and more importantly understands the benefit that comes to their business from taking that investment, or like making that investment. So they go, okay, a good developer is going to cost me X, but with what they're going to produce, because they're good, I'm going to be able to generate Y. It's like X at some multiple. It might be double, it might be more, it might not quite be double, but it doesn't matter. Like, they should know that. That's their business, right? Yeah. Those who understand that are great clients, because they go, here's my money, take it, do this thing because you're going to make me money. Yeah. When you approach clients, or when you're dealing with clients that don't get that, it becomes really obvious. They don't understand their business. They don't understand the value of what you can bring to their business, and they don't appreciate fully I'm not saying they don't at all, but they don't appreciate fully the benefits of what you do and what that can bring to their bottom line, you know. And it might be because they've had a bad experience before, or they've only ever dealt with very junior developers or people who've been trying their hand at it but never really, you know, they're not like seasoned professionals. And so whilst it's not fair to say like avoid those clients because they still need help, there's a bit more of a, if you can spot that early, you can educate them. And if you can back that education up with like the quality of the work that you do, then you can actually show them a better way, and they will be better for other developers, you know, other freelancers that they work with down the line because of what you've done. So I think you just have to assess like your capacity and desire to do that like educational piece with them, because if you're not in the mood for that, it's, you know, probably kind of like step back, avoid, maybe pass it on to somebody else who can, but if you are, then definitely support them, but if you possibly can.
I mean, it's things like, even just for some small businesses, like I tend to work with, well, I used to, should I say, so I used to tend to work with like startups, like really, really small startups. It could be like a hairdresser or something like that. So I don't really know if you class them as a startup, but they're a new business starting up. So, and they'd come to me and they'd say, I want a website making. And I could rinse them for all the money that they've got. But I'd turn around to them and say, I think you might just be better off going to Wix, Squarespace, something like that. Get a small site set up, test the waters. If it's working for you and you want to expand, then come back to me and we'll go bigger. But apart from that, there's no point me taking like thousands of pounds off you or dollars or whatever it is at the time. Because whatever I build you, you're not going to make back straight away, and it's hard for them to understand that. Whereas if a bigger company comes to me and says, we want a website, I can guarantee their website is not just going to be a website. It's basically a web application with a website skin over it. And there's a lot more complexity going on. So I think sometimes it's just setting expectations for the client and letting them know. Because I've had people who've come to me that had the Wix website and come back to me a few years later and like, it's going great. Can we take the next step for me? And I'm like, yeah, of course you can. Great. If I'd have ripped him off in the first place, they'd have probably like, well, they probably won't think very highly of me. So,
it's a really difficult position to put yourself in, because like you're effectively, you're saying no to the short term gain, right? But opening the door to a long term opportunity, maybe, and that doesn't always come off either. But I think you can boil that down to just like doing right by people. You know, I think at the end of the day, you know, it might be a business, they might have deep pockets, blah, blah, blah. But if you look at it as like, well, I'm building a relationship with the people on this, you know, the other side of the fence, and I don't know how long that's going to be, I don't know how that's going to turn out, but if I do right by them, maybe they'll remember that, and it might be months, it might be years later, but they'll potentially come back, or they'll refer me to somebody else, or whatever, and just like have good memories about the experience they've had with me. So I think that as a principle is a good thing to try and stick to.
Yeah, 100%. I've got to ask you, I'll give you a little bit of time to think about this one. So if we had a hypothetical time machine and we could send Simon back to his very first day of freelancing, and present Simon can now give past Simon one piece of advice, and then that's it. You can't say any more than one piece, you're going to disappear again. What are you going to tell him? It's a difficult one.
Yeah, I mean, my mind's going through loads of options. Wow, let me see.
I think people tend to find this, that you've got lots of little bits of advice, but you can't ever put your finger on just that one key piece.
I think I have to go back. I mean, I've already said it, but it stands out as the most prominent thing for me. Don't be afraid to say no. Like for me to say, going back in time and saying that to myself, you know, because I definitely, even in this last, 2 years, it's not quite been 2 years, but I've said yes to things which I look back on and I go, I should have said no to that. So I think I would have said to myself more like, when this comes up, say no. Just say no. Yeah.
Yeah,
that's it.
No, that's totally cool. I think I'd probably agree with you as well. Like we were saying earlier, just makes that emotionally just easier to work on projects and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
we've gone to the past. Now we're going to go to the future. So where do you see yourself going? Like what's the plan? Do you have a plan? Or are you just playing it by ear or?
Yeah, no, I think I do have a plan, but it's, I'm planning in these sort of longer cycles. I thought I'll just freelance for a bit, and then I'll try, when the job market picks up, I'll try interviewing again and see if I can get something that lets me stay here, because, I want to be here for now in Gran Canaria. So can I get something that lets me stay here, but then has the stability of like a full-time role, blah, blah, blah. And as I've just progressed, it's kind of been carried along by the waves of the freelance work that I've been doing. I actually haven't really thought about going back to interviewing, because it's just been like stable and steady. It's been going okay. So I think I'm going to continue freelancing. That's the first thing. Yeah. But the sort of longer term thing is, I'm really enjoying the projects that I'm working on for clients. And I like the variety of being able to kind of do multiple things. It's engaging, and I'm learning a lot still. I've been doing this for 20 years, but I'm still learning stuff, which is great. But the one thing that's come out of all of this that I really, really enjoy and I want to focus my attention on is my open source stuff. So I would really love, honestly, and this is where I hope to be in the not too distant future, is not be doing any client work really, and just like the open source things and adjacent, let's say, tooling is sort of paying for my time to just be spent on that. That's where I would love to get to. So, I mean, I would still call that freelancing technically.
I would as well, yeah.
But I don't envisage, like, I don't want to be doing client work like that as the majority. Like the majority of my income is coming from client work right now. So that's the plan. We'll see what happens.
That's pretty cool, I guess, because I guess by that you're taking even more control of your income, aren't you? And you're bringing it like from your work rather than doing it for other people's work and stuff. So it sounds.
Yeah, I mean, there's risk there. I agree. I mean, it's hard to see. Like there are factors at play that could cause that to like dip and just like change over time.
Yeah.
But it does feel a little bit more like. Freelancing is often termed as like feast or famine. A lot of people experience I've got too much at once. I get loads. I can bill out loads of time. I can book clients in for months in advance, and they're happy to wait, and all of this. And so I've got like a big pot of gold now, all at once. And then after I finish all of that stuff, for some reason, whatever, I can't find any more work, and that pot gets stretched out over 3, 4, 5, 6 months or more, and in that way, it's like very peaks and troughs, and you want something to like smooth that out. So I kind of feel like it will be the same, maybe less so if all of my income was coming from like apps or open source donations and things. It just wouldn't be as pronounced. And so I kind of feel like maybe I will still keep some client work in there just to like, smooth things out a bit more. And I think for me, the fundamental thing there that leads to is like, just don't put all of your eggs in one basket. Don't have that one client who pays you really well, but at any moment they could turn around and say, sorry, mate, we don't need you anymore. So, unless you're in a really good relationship with a client where you've negotiated long-term contracts with like, decent get-out clauses and whatever, it's very likely that a client can just turn around and with very short notice say, sorry, you're off. So just like try to vary some where you're investing some of your time to make sure that you're not completely reliant on just one one nest.
No, I definitely agree on that one. I mean, I think one of the other things is people tend to... It tends to happen to employees as well, not just freelancers. So you'll have a job, you've got your CV or a resume, whatever you want to call it, wherever you are in the world. You have your job for 5 years, and then all of a sudden you get made redundant or fired, sacked, whatever you want to call it. And when that happens, all of a sudden they go and rush to go and find the CV, realise it's massively out of date, they're spending ages trying to find jobs. And if you spend a bit of time, like, just keeping your portfolio up to date, like every couple of months, even if it's just every 6 months or once a year, it'll make that search so much easier when it comes to an end. But I'll admit, I don't keep on top of it as much as I should do. I don't think most people do, but if you can though, it's so much easier. Like, you can walk out of one project and hopefully walk into another one a lot sooner without having to worry about, I need to update my portfolio, I need to get on top of my social medias and stuff like that. It's just people don't tend to think about the marketing until they need it. They're more reactive rather than proactive. So
yeah, that's a really good point. I mean, I think keep along the same vein, like keeping regularly on top of those kinds of things is really important. I find, I'm on Twitter a lot. I still call it Twitter.
Yes,
and for better or worse, that's been a good source of clients and contacts for me, leads at least. And so I've always seen that as like, this is worth me investing some of my time in, and every week, and I'm trying to engage with like, what's the topics that are relevant to me, like who are the people in the space that are like doing things I'm interested in, what can I share about, that kind of stuff. And a lot of it's just chitter chatter, it's not really targeted, but I think because I'm there regularly, like people know that's where I am. I don't even know if people think about this, but it's like, I'm there, and I'm not saying things that are, hopefully I'm not saying things that are too offensive or like putting people off, I'm trying to be like me, but tempered in a way so that it's like, this is safe for public consumption sort of content, whatever. So it doesn't have to be Twitter, but wherever you do this kind of thing, where you might be writing blog articles or whatever, even just like updating your portfolio, wherever you keep a portfolio, just like you're checking on it sort of fairly regularly, and you're kind of polishing it up, so that in case somebody comes looking, they're seeing the most recent version of this stuff. And it doesn't have to take like an hour or a half a day or whatever to do it. It should just be like, okay, I've done this project, so I'll write that up, or I'll tweet about it, or I'll do a little video, and just push it out, and don't make it into like big work. Like, this is the biggest problem when you're freelancing, is like, you've got enough of doing the work, finding the clients, doing the admin. So don't create more work for yourself to do like the sales and marketing stuff. You need to do it in the most effective way. So just do the things that are like easy, quick enough, like the MVP, keep it stupidly simple. Just get that stuff done and out of the way so you can move on to the really important stuff. But just keep doing it regularly.
Yeah, definitely. Even if it's just a case of having a page called Portfolio or something on your website, stick a screenshot on there of what you've done, like with the name, and if you want to, a sentence to as a description, maybe a tag, like, was it a web app, was it built in Laravel or Vue, was it like it all depends who you're targeting. If you try and tell the local electrician you just built a site in Laravel and Vue with inertia, they're going to be like, what? But if you're trying to recruit, like, if you're trying to be recruited by like an in-house like dev team, maybe then you would have mentioned technical terms like that. But it's like 5 minutes, 10 minutes job sort of thing. And if it's not a 5 or 10 minute job, maybe take a look at your workflow and change it to make it in the future 5 or 10 minute job, so it's easier.
100%.
Because I think if there's less barriers to do it, you're more inclined to want to do it. It's like people with tests. Like, I know we're going a bit off a tangent here, but people writing tests for the web apps and stuff, they don't tend to write them because they find it difficult. But once you've got the steps in place to make it easier, all of a sudden you want to write tests, and it pays off long term rather than short term.
But, you wrote a book about this, didn't you? I feel like
I've wrote a couple of books.
Yeah. I remember reading. I can't remember the title. I'm sorry, but I remember reading one of your books and thinking, yeah, like this is all just about like making it easy for yourself. Like if you make it easy, you kind of make it enjoyable. To a certain extent, and it's so true even of freelancing, like those little chores that you gotta do if you want like things to continue working. You know, you gotta grease the wheels a little bit, and you just make it as easy as possible for you to do it and do it. You know, you still gotta do it, but the easier it is, at least you know that okay, well I go in and I do this and it's done, and it's like 10 minutes or whatever. That's great. I mean, I'm in a really bad, as an counterexample, I'm in a really bad situation at the moment. I need to do my accounts, and I've left it for months and months, and now it's stacked up, and I've got to do a ton. And the fact of it just being so big makes it such a mental hurdle to like, I just need to sit down and do this, and I don't know how long it's going to take me. It could take me a couple of days. You know, it's like. Yeah, and 100%. I don't know if I can afford to do that for a couple of days because I haven't really got that time. So, if I'd been doing it little bit by little bit over that period, it would have been better. But I've got to bite the bullet now, unfortunately, and sort that out.
I'm sure it'll be fine. I'd like to say you'll hopefully learn your lesson for next financial year, but
I doubt it.
So far, we've been kind of talking about like you as a freelancer. But like I said at the beginning of this episode, you run like a really cool site called Laradevs.
Thanks.
And I wanted to know if you just give us a bit of a bit of an overview, like what is Laradevs and how might the listeners, why might the listeners want to sign up to it?
Yeah, well, thanks for the opportunity to let me speak about it a little bit.
No,
Well, again, a bit of context. I'll try not to ramble too much, but last year when I started freelancing, I was looking around for other developers, who are freelancing in the Laravel space. Yeah. I'm connected with a lot of people on Twitter, and I've been, that's sort of been growing as I've been engaging more there as well. But Twitter isn't really the space for like finding freelancers. You can. But you couldn't. There's no like directed search that you can do that's going to find you a Laravel freelancer. You just got to be in the
circle,
the pit. That's it. In the circle, in the pit with everybody else, and kind of you start to realize, these people, they're not working for a company. They're kind of doing client work, and okay, they're a freelancer, and maybe I can reach out to them if I need, an extra pair of hands on a project. So the reason for that at the time was I was picking up a project that was a bit too much for me on my own, and I was looking at potentially getting someone else in, and that sparked the idea of like, I just need like a pool of people that I can reach, people that I can kind of vet and have some contact with and assess their profiles ahead of time, and then I can just reach out to them when I've got projects. And that it turned into like a Notion website that I built in a half a day, and started getting people applying via Google form or some really simplistic thing, and I tried to automate the heck out of it. Notion's this whole thing of its own, and I was like trying to automate all this stuff, and I was thinking, if this doesn't even work out, I can do a course on Notion or something. But anyway, so that ended up being something that I called Valiance, which was like freelance Laravel portmanteau of those words in some weird way. It's a horrible name. Anyway, the thing that I did with that, which I thought I enjoyed and got some traction with, was just posting people's profiles through my Twitter account. So then it was like opening it up to other people, opening up these freelancers who are like either available or could be available for work in the future. And I got quite a bit of interaction from that. So I was like, there's something here. Mm-hmm. And I posted about it on Reddit. And then somebody said, have you seen this site? And it was called Laradir, LARADIR.com. Yeah. And I was like, no, I've never seen that before in my life. Went to it. I was like, this is exactly what I'm doing. But they've done like a really nice design, and the application's built on Laravel, and it's like focused on Laravel developers, and there were some profiles on there and stuff, and I was just like, this is really cool. I'm going to sign up and see what happens, you know. And a few months went by, and kind of I didn't get any interactions through it and stuff, and you know, my profile was live on the site, and I thought, well, it's a bit of a shame because I think there's an opportunity there. But clearly that you know, something's not working. So I reached out to the team who built that, and I said, yeah, would you be up for some sort of collaboration? I didn't hear from them for months, but when they finally kind of replied to me, we got chatting about how it's working and how it's not working, and they said, look, we're a bit, you know, meh about it now. We haven't got the time to keep working on it and all of this stuff. Would you take it over? You know, basically, would you make an offer to take it over? And I said, well, you know, yes, I'd be happy to do that, but we'd need to look in a lot more detail at some things. So we went through this kind of exercise of, can't remember the word, but you know, like making sure that everything's sort of kosher and worthy of doing a bit of an investment. And I had the funds available, and I made them an offer, and they basically turned around and said yes straight away. So I couldn't take it off their hands quick enough, which I don't know if that's a good sign or not. But I kind of understood their plight. I think they built this thing hoping that it would kind of just take off by itself, and it didn't. And I thought, well, this is something that I really believe in. I've been trying to do the same. I've had some like positive reaction to some, you know, earlier idea of the same thing. So I think I can turn this around, you know, and turn it into something. Sorry, I know this is going on for ages. You just tell me to stop.
I love hearing stuff like this, so it's cool.
Okay, cool. I find like the deal went through. I fully acquired the site, and they handed it over in early or mid-November last year. So I've not even had the site 1 year yet. And I made a bit of a song and dance about it at the time that I acquired it and sort of relaunched it, but it didn't really change anything. You know, some of the functionality needed fixing and tweaking, but other than that, something very basic, like re-roll it out under my name. And then I've basically invested in it ever since then. So it hasn't made any money. It's only been a loss to date, but I believe in the concept of I just want to help the Laravel developers. You know, this is the community I'm in. I love Laravel. I love the community. I really want to help all developers, not just freelancers, to like get their profile out there a bit more. There's a load of developers that they haven't taken the time to build a website. They don't put loads of content out there for people to see. That you might never know that they even exist, but they've got a profile on what is now Laradevs. So I think that's quite telling, that it can be this place where developers kind of exist online. It might be for some the only place that they are, which is kind of great. So it's worthwhile just for that. Like, you haven't got to set up a website. You haven't got to set up all this crazy. You just write a bio, add your picture, choose the technologies that you're most comfortable with, and that you've got like a portfolio page. So that's like number one. But I think the other side to it is it's fine just having a directory of developers. Like, okay, cool, there's just a list of devs, and you can search through those. And maybe someone will find your profile and reach out to you, whatever. But the other side to it is, unfortunately, it is a two-sided marketplace, really, what's being built there. And so what you have to do is work both sides. So I've done the first bit, is like, let's get devs on. If I can't do anything if there are no devs there, and I know that I can get devs on there, especially if it's free. So it's free, so you can sign up for free. And if I sort of built this approval process. So one of the things was that profiles were going in and they were just going live straight away. And I was like, that's not really great. There's going to be spam. There was a lot of rubbish in there.
Yeah.
And there was a few hundred profiles on the site. And I was just like, I don't know if these are actually Laravel developers. I don't know if they're any good.
Yeah.
If I approach this as a hiring manager, am I going to trust this site to give me decent candidates? So I was like, I need to review all of these profiles. I need to do that manually. So that's what I do. That is, and it went from, there was about 600 or 700 user accounts and slightly fewer profiles than that on the site when I acquired it. We just crossed over 5,000 users, and there's close to 3,000 profiles, and of those I think I've approved close to 1,000. So I've reviewed every single one of those profiles myself.
Fair play for that.
Yeah, thanks. And I go through kind of a detailed process, but it's very high level and it's very quick because I haven't got time to review thousands of profiles, deeply. But I can say with a very high level of confidence that these are all people that I would hire if I was a hiring manager, or I would engage with if I was looking for a freelancer.
Yeah.
I would certainly reach out to them with the hopes that they're going to respond and we're going to start a conversation about potential of working together. So, that effort has been really worthwhile just for me thinking if I ever wanted to engage one of these people as a freelancer. And what it's turned into is now teams are kind of signing up to gain access to the directory and message people and more. And teams are asking me for other things too, so there's more stuff coming. And developers are always asking me for other things too, like, I want to put my portfolio on here, I want to put images of websites or maybe videos or all these other things. So I'm trying to build it up in my spare time because this is a side project still. And I'm investing in marketing and design. The design of the site's been going through some improvements. I'm working with a really good designer.
Which look great, by the way.
Don't they?
Amazing. Yeah.
So I'm working with Hassan Sahernia, who's he's kind of well known in the Laravel community now, I would say. He's done the Filament website. I think he's part of the Filament core team, really. And he recently redesigned the Laradevs website, which is beautiful as well. Yeah. He's just doing really good work, and he's great to work with. And he's done a cracking job on the Laradevs site. So, continuing that. And I've got a young developer working with me at the moment to build out some new features as well on it. So I'm just throwing money at this thing. It feels like burning money, but I think it's translating into, there are now. I feel like I'm really getting this place where teams and developers are sort of coming together, and they're messaging. There's messages almost every day on the site now between teams and developers. There's profiles being created every day. I would like to say there are teams signing up every day, but it's not quite at that level yet, but it's getting there. There's some big names, and the list of email addresses that I see, there's some very interesting brands that have come through the site, so I'm keen for them to start using it more actively. So we'll see what happens. The next 12 months is going to be really, really interesting on Laradevs. Let's just say that.
Yeah. I mean, I've got my fingers crossed for you. I even if it doesn't make any money, which I know you want it to make some money,
no matter what anyone says, just cover its costs.
Money makes the world go round, no matter what anyone says. But the fact that you're helping people land work and stuff, it's just
trying.
It's really cool. Honestly, I
Thanks.
Tip my hat to you. And also, it circles back to what we were saying earlier about making things easier to do. Like you said, it's really easy if you just set up a portfolio, get some stuff on there, and then if you want to take it further. But you don't need to start messing around with setting up a website. Just probably 5 minutes and you've got an MVP set up at least.
Definitely. I mean, I would like to say I'm quite open in approving profiles. As long as you can show that you've got experience with Laravel, I think that's the main thing that I'm looking for. Obviously, the more that you can flesh that out, and the more of a story that you can tell about yourself, the better it's going to be. Not for me to approve your profile, but for any teams coming and looking, because they're going to get a bit more of your like backstory or whatever it is that kind of you sell yourself. And there's still maybe quite a few profiles that actually are live at the moment that if I reviewed them with fresh eyes, they probably wouldn't be. So, just that's my other thing is what we were saying earlier as well. Come back on every so often and kind of update your profile. If your availability has changed or what you're looking for has changed, because it's, as I said, it's not just for freelancers, but if you decide, I don't want to freelance anymore, I'm looking for a full-time role, change that in your profile so that people searching find you in the right place that they're looking. So yeah,
that's cool. Well, I just want to say a massive thank you for coming on and for being the first guest as well. So I just wanted to know where can anyone find you if they want to come look for you anywhere on socials or any website links or anything like that you might want to share?
I'm Simon Hamp, at Simon Hamp on most of the social networks that I'm on, so Pinkery and Twitter and one or two others, it doesn't matter. I do have a website as well. It's simonhamp.me, but I don't know if it's up to date. That's really bad. It's not following my own advice. I'll try and blog occasionally stuff on there. I have a podcast that I'm doing called The Bucket at the moment.
Sweet.
So
where can we find
listen to that? The Bucket Pod on YouTube or The Bucket .transistor FM. I think I'll send you the link, the exact link. I can't remember it off the top of my head. We're only like 2 episodes in, so it hasn't quite sunk in yet. Where I talk with a couple of other Laravel devs about dev topics, and freelancing is going to be one of those things that we bring up quite often.
That's cool.
Because we're all freelancers as well. So those are the main places. Obviously, I would love it if you check out Laradevs, sign up.
Yes.
That would be great. And native PHP is the other thing. So if you've not seen that, go and have a look.
Yeah. And where's the best? There we are.
Sorry.
No, I talked over you then, Simon. But nativephp.com. You'll need to go and check it out. So, well, anyway, thanks for coming on, Simon. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, Ash. It's really good. Nice to meet you properly as well.
Yeah, likewise.